in the creative space of essay, but I think between prelims and mains, after I wrote a couple of essays with dominant essay program, the feedbacks that I had gotten after that, I understood that writing might be something that I'm very comfortable with, but UPSC essay has a different demand altogether. But also, it also felt that, as you said, I used to put this quotes or put these ideas, but not give a context as well. So I was doing two things, and also my paragraphs were not complete. Like the context was missing. So even though I was using a lot of words, it was of no use because I was just putting ideas. I was just putting thoughts here and there. But what I understood that how do I maintain the flow is that there has to be some connection between the two paragraphs.
Well, hello, dear students. I am Zishan Hashmi, Senior Program Lead at Civilsdaily for Dominate Prelims program and Dominate Essay program, which are integral pillars of the UAP program, of which Animesh has been a student. I proudly have Animesh All India ranked to UPSC CSE 2023 exam. Also, I have with me Ranadhir sir, who has been a source of strength and inspiration for Animesh for the past 2 years through his in-depth and empathetic mentorship, of which we all have learned and seen on the internet. Guys, this session will be short. We will be restricting ourselves to the essay paper. There is a reason why we are sticking to the essay paper. Number one, Animesh has performed really well in the essay paper. And number two, there is this lack of interest, or do we say essay paper is such a paper which is most neglected, despite the fact that in the mains examinations and among the GS papers, out of the 1,250 marks which the GS component has, 250 mark alone are contributed by the essay paper. So neglecting it can cost us either a rank or a good service. So we'll be deep diving into what was Animesh's journey when it comes to preparing for essay. Guys, marks of rankers have come out. And when I was scrolling through the list and the marks of rankers, top 50 rankers, I could see that there was a complete massacre in the essay paper. Like in the top 50 rankers, essay score fluctuated from 108 marks, 109 marks, 10, 11. Like All India rank 1 had 117 marks and Animesh had 133 marks. So achieving 133 marks at a time when UPSC has scaled down marks in essay immensely is a big achievement in itself. Also, if I compare Animesh's scores in other subjects, say for example, he had almost same marks in ethics. In ethics, he had 134 marks. In sociology paper 1, he had 133 marks. Again, in essay paper, he had 133 marks. So the essay paper has emerged to be such an important paper where other students are getting far less marks. Like I could see many students who were recommended in the finalists whose scores were in 80s and 90s and getting 133 marks at par with your ethics paper, at par with your sociology paper 1. Now that is something worth noting. So I would like to ask Animesh on this. Animesh, what do you think exactly worked in your favor when it comes to your performance in the essay paper?
But I think I was very conscious while I was writing an essay. Earlier, it always felt that it's just an essay that you have to write. You already have a content, and we do not put a lot of thought in the creative space of essay. But I think between prelims and mains, after I wrote a couple of essays with dominant essay program, the feedbacks that I had gotten after that, I understood that writing might be something that are very comfortable with, but UPSC essay has a different demand altogether. And since it's a longer essay, a bit complicated, you have to make it more interesting, more coherent. So I think that conscious strategy, that how can I do it more creative and coherent, is something that must have helped me.
Okay. So what you're saying that is that you, like when we also had this conversation on the phone, you had said that you were always good at writing. You liked writing and you were a writer of sorts in that way. And one reason for your essays being content rich was also that you had good command over other papers, be it your GS papers or your optional papers, which reflected in your copies. See, I went through some of your copies that I had evaluated and given inputs on. And I couldn't find even a single reference on enhancing your content. Rather, I could see the opposite. Like if I scroll, I have those papers with me now. One comment here was, you're full of ideas, but you need to do justice to one idea before you can move on with the second one. So this was the sentiment across. No dearth of content, but the crafting aspect, the structuring aspect, as Animesh has mentioned, be it maintaining coherence, be it maintaining organic connect between paragraphs, be it maintaining the overall structure of the essay. That was something we were working on. Again, there is another comment I can see here is he had written a quote. Animesh had written a quote which said the unique attribute that makes humans superior is that they keep the interests of their tribe above their self-interests. Now, a beautiful quote in itself. Here again, he has made reference to Yuval Noah Harari, the books Sapiens, and on. But the comment here that is given is, after this quote, mention how great people of the time follow this principle. This will make the quote more contextual. Now, this is the first copy that Animesh had sent. Fine. So the writing was in his natural flair was visible in the essay, and then on he started imbibing these learnings, these suggestions. One last input that I have before me here is he had written a paragraph where he had linked events in the current context, things going on in Manipur, etc. Here the comment was, you should have used such examples here where the power of love brought peace so that your argument comes in sync with the subheading. Which means here a subheading was given and a write-up was written. But the write-up was not very much in sync with the subheading. Now, these were the initial essays that Animesh had written. इसके बाद सिर्फ और सिर्फ इंप्रूवमेंट ही देखने को मिला था when the suggestions were given. Also, Ranadhir, you also had many interactions with Animesh in general and also with respect to essay. So, as I mentioned, no single reference to content, but references to context, flow, coherence, organic connect, the structural aspects, basically. Fine.
Correct.
So these were quite pinpointed inputs, which Animesh thinks might have helped him. What would you add here, Ranadhir? Because you have been his mentor throughout. What would you add?
One thing, which Animesh wrote essay, first of all, any student will ask. I'll ask from a student point of view. Okay, I'll also ask few questions, Animesh, to you also from a student point of view, which many of my students ask me, and I say. But if you say to them, I think that's a good validation for them also, to whatever I'm saying, because first people will have a doubt regarding introductions, whether should be written by anecdote or quotation or direct explanation, what to do. That's the first thing. Second thing is whether after introduction we should have a summarized version of our essay in one paragraph or not. Whether we should summarize in one paragraph that what we are going to see in coming whole essay. Second thing, do we have any subheadings or side headings or not in essay, right? And how to flow, what is the flow, how to maintain the flow and all those stuff. So the other things generally we discussed, right? Because Animesh's essays, initially I think he wrote paragraphs ranging from one page, whole one and a half page, something like that, if I'm right. So he used to write very lengthy paragraphs, like ranging from one page to 1.5 page.
Lots
so that's where
and lots of monotony. Initially.
monotony was there. So we try to break it that actually. Second thing is flow. Many people don't know how to maintain flow, and I want to listen from Animesh also, so that people should know what is the maintaining flow, because every UPSC aspirant I have, so ranker also I have seen that they say maintain flow, but it's only Anudip Durshetty, the rank one 2017. He said how to maintain flow, and I think that's the reference I give to Animesh also. That look at what Anudip sir has told, and then do whatever you want to do in that way. So structuring paragraph wise and all those stuff, very up
Sure.
introduction whether to have a summary.
Sure. So Animesh, if you could recall any of your copies or any write-up that you could recall, the things that Ranjir has mentioned, flow, structuring, be it your introduction or other aspects of your essay. Students would really appreciate if you could put it out more objectively.
I think the example that you have, one of the copies that you have right now, one of my first copies that I submitted, if you see the introduction itself would have been 1.5 page, or the couple of paragraphs were extremely long. I can recall for most part I had done this mistake because when I was giving a context, I could not summarize it in a more crisper way. But also it also felt that, as you said, I used to put this quotes or put these ideas, but not give a context as well. So I was doing two things wrong. I was not keeping the paragraphs short, and also my paragraphs were not complete. Like the context was missing. So even though I was using a lot of words, it was of no use because I was just putting ideas. I was just putting thoughts here and there, and it made sense. Most of them, I hope, were relevant, but not in a way that a reader is reading and can make sense of it. So in silos, everything's were there, but there's a logical flow. And when Ranajit sir was speaking about flow, so what I understood that how do I maintain the flow is that there has to be some connection between the two paragraphs. And initially I started, and a lot of times I started with using connected words and giving a reference to the first paragraph. But also that was a more logical and easier way to do. But then also I tried to be more creative about it and understood I'll pose a question at the end of the paragraph and try to answer in the next paragraph with a different dimension to the essay. So that two of my dimensions get covered, but in a question answer format, which become a connector between two paragraphs. So that also generates a curiosity, because I ended one of the paragraphs with a thought-provoking thought or a question, and then I'm trying to answer that in another paragraph. So it helps to maintain that your interest in the essay as well, and the flow gets continued.
Yes, quite beautifully said. Certainly there are various means of maintaining organic connect and fluidity between paragraphs. And the way you did it by incorporating questions at the end of the paragraphs and answering them in the next paragraph was a very logical and a smart way of doing things. Randhir, you were saying something?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, how the body, even conclusion also, I think I also told that conclusion has to link somewhere with the introduction also. That's how, if you end conclusion, the conclusion should be punch giving, the conclusion should give punch to the person who is checking your copy. And the thing is, the essay should invoke something from the examiner, something from the examiner, because if he or she just read the essay, that's not sufficient actually. But the essay which you are writing should make them to think. That's the objective of the essay. That's what I always say.
So in other words, what you're saying, Randir, is your essay or your narrative has to be persuasive, right? The examiner should feel persuaded with our thought process. Yes, makes sense. Very quickly moving ahead, like we have to keep this session very short. Let me directly jump to the prelims aspect. Like, is there anything about essay that you would want to ask or add? Otherwise, we could jump to the prelims aspect. Like Ranadhir or even Animesh, if you want to add anything.
No, I like him to answer a few questions, like, whether can we give side headings in essay or not, and whether we can ask questions in essay or not. Just regular questions which I get actually. So you tell me on these things. Actually.
I think this is quite a germane question, because I remember when I was scrolling through his copies, there were suggestions given with respect to subheadings. And especially I've seen this, that generally students from technical background, engineering background, have this knack of using subheadings, and which is not necessarily wrong, but sometimes they tend to overdo it, like using subheadings without seeing at the context, and using them just for the sake of it. Fine. So I could see some comments on the subheadings as well. So what would you add on this based on what you learned in this journey before your mains exam while you're writing tests, Animesh?
So yes, as you said that I had this thing that I had put subheadings, as many subheadings I can, so that I thought it would break the monotony and it would feel that I'm covering a lot of dimensions. But then, as Ranjan said, pointed out, I reduced it down to 2 or 3 subheadings at max. But in my final exam, unfortunately, in the first essay that I wrote, I forgot putting subheadings. I was going with the flow, and I had not put subheadings, and it stuck to me after I had ended the essay. But the second essay that I wrote, I had put subheadings. So I did both. So I think there won't be any right answer that whether you want to put a subheading or not. But as you mentioned, you should not put it just for the sake of it. And when you're adding it, it has an additional responsibility that you have to make it more relevant, and you have to stick to the context of the subheading that you have provided. Otherwise, it's easier to point out that the subheading and the content are not matching. And if when you are not putting the subheading, then you are getting away with that risk. So it's up to you that whatever you want to experiment with.